Imagine holding a letter that looks to every eye in the world perfectly ordinary, a name, an address, a postage stamp fixed in its proper corner. But to the person who receives it, a wife, a sweetheart, a handler, that envelope is a map. The stamp's angle, its position, the deliberate overlap of a second stamp placed just so over the first, tells a story that no censor can read and no military tribunal can prove. This is the forgotten fieldcraft of the First World War, a secret language written not in ink but in the precise, intimate placement of postage stamps. And today on Fieldcraft Chronicles, we're pulling back the mud and the silence of a century to show you exactly how it worked. Before we can understand the message, we have to understand the messenger. Picture the Western Front in 1916. You are standing in a communications trench somewhere near the Somme, and the ground beneath your boots is not ground at all. It is a cold, living paste of chalk, clay, and the unspeakable residue of months of occupation. The smell hits you before anything else. Wood smoke layered over rot, over wet wool, over the sharp chemical bite of chlorinated water poured into corroded tin cups. The walls of the trench are shored up with timber and corrugated iron, but they breathe, they ooze. After rain, and there is always rain, the duckboards float. Men slept in dugouts carved into the trench walls, sometimes 3 or 4 feet deep, barely enough to keep a man horizontal. These were roofed with whatever could be scavenged sheets of corrugated iron, flattened biscuit tins, branches cut from the splintered woodland behind the line. A candle stub provided both light and morale. Soldiers learned quickly that a candle placed near the entrance of a dugout created just enough of a heat differential to discourage rats from settling at your feet, though rarely enough to stop them entirely. This was fieldcraft in its rawest form, not taught in any manual, but passed mouth to ear along the fire step, as one rotation relieved another. Food arrived in sandbags or tin containers, already cold by the time it made the journey from the field kitchen through the communication trenches to the front line. Biscuits were so hard they were routinely soaked in water or tea before eating. Bully beef, well, it tasted of the tin it came in. When rations ran short, and they did, soldiers supplemented with whatever the trench provided, nettles boiled into a bitter broth, or the occasional rabbit taken with a sharpened wire noose set along the trench wall where the soil softened. Water was a constant calculation. Rain was collected in ground sheets, filtered through cloth, and treated with chloride of lime tablets that left a taste men described as drinking a swimming bath. Every drop was rationed. Every decision about its use for drinking, for cooking, for washing a wound, was a survival decision. Into this world of constant surveillance and censorship, love letters arrived like a form of oxygen. The postal system in the First World War was remarkable in its scale. Millions of letters moved between the front and home every week, and military censors read an enormous proportion of them. Soldiers knew this, their families knew this, and so began the adaptation of a Victorian-era romantic tradition into something with life and death applications. The language of stamps had circulated in popular culture since the 1880s, published in ladies' magazines and novelty almanacs as a playful code for lovers. An upside-down stamp might mean, "I miss you." A stamp placed at the bottom left of an envelope signified something else entirely. But by the time war came, couples and reportedly certain intelligence contacts had pushed the system far beyond its romantic origins. The key innovation was the use of overlapping stamps, two or more stamps placed in deliberate, precise relation to one another, to encode information that a single stamp could never carry alone. Here is how the geographic system worked, as best as historians and cryptographic researchers have reconstructed it. A pre-agreed grid, typically a reduced version of a military or civilian map of a known region, was divided into sectors. Each sector corresponded to a specific stamp placement. A stamp rotated 15 degrees clockwise from vertical at the top right corner might indicate one grid square, while the same stamp rotated 30 degrees indicated another. A second stamp overlapping the first at a precise angle, say the bottom left corner of the second stamp touching the top right corner of the first, narrowed the location further, functioning almost like a coordinate pair. The receiving party, holding the pre-agreed reference grid, could reconstruct a rough geographic location from what appeared, to any sensor, to be a slightly carelessly placed pair of stamps. The operational constraints were significant and they were deliberate. The system required an agreed key, shared before separation, before the soldier left for the front, before the operative crossed the border. It required care in execution, because a stamp placed 2 millimeters off its intended position could send the wrong signal entirely. And it required nerve, because British and French sensors were specifically trained to flag envelopes with irregularly placed stamps as potentially suspicious. The soldier or civilian using this system was gambling on the sensor's threshold, betting that a slightly skewed stamp looked like carelessness rather than craft. If this episode opened a door for you into the history, into the craft, into the extraordinary resourcefulness of ordinary people under extraordinary pressure, then Fieldcraft Chronicles has more doors waiting. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode, and share this video with anyone in your life who values history, self-reliance, and the deep, practical art of survival. Every share keeps this knowledge alive and puts it in front of someone who needs it. We'll see you at the next fire.